My name is Daniel, and I never thought I would have to tell this story. I am telling it now because silence stopped working. There was a night when I sat alone in my car, engine off, lights out, watching my childhood home through a rain-streaked windshield. I was not there to visit. I was there because something had already broken, and I did not know how to name it yet. All I knew was that I was not welcome anymore. Not really. And I knew that whatever came next would change my family forever. I grew up in a house where love was measured in results. Grades, titles, job names you could brag about. My parents were not cruel in obvious ways. They were worse. They were dismissive. If you succeeded in the way they understood, you were praised. If you didn't, you were tolerated. My younger brother fit their picture perfectly. He followed the path. College, corporate job, nice suits, holiday dinners full of stories that made my parents glow. I did not. I left school early. Not because I was lazy, because I knew I would suffocate there. I started working online in my early 20s. Small projects at first. Nothing flashy. Just long nights and quiet progress. At family gatherings, I became a background character. My father would ask my brother about promotions. My mother would ask him about bonuses. Then they would turn to me and say things like, "So, still figuring things out?" I learned to smile and nod. I stopped correcting them. It was easier that way. By the time I turned 30, my life looked very different from what they imagined. I owned my apartment outright. I ran multiple businesses. I chose my schedule. But I never told them. Not out of strategy. Out of exhaustion. I was tired of proving myself to people who had already decided who I was. So I stayed quiet. And they filled the silence for me. The real fracture began with a phone call. It was my mother. Her voice was tight, formal. She asked if I could come by. She said it was important. I knew that tone. It was the one she used when decisions had already been made. When I arrived, my brother was there. That should have warned me. They sat me down like a panel. My father spoke first. He said he was worried about my future. He said he did not see stability in my life. He said he felt they had failed me by letting me drift. I asked what this was really about. My brother leaned forward. He said I had always taken the easy way out. He said it must be nice to live without real responsibility. My mother said they had talked and agreed it was time to stop supporting my delusions. I asked what support they meant. They could not name any. But that did not stop them. My father said something that still echoes in my head. If you were really doing well, we would know. That was it. That sentence erased everything I had built in their minds. Facts did not matter. Only visibility. And since they could not see my success, it did not exist. They told me I should stop coming around until I had something real to show. Not those exact words, but close enough. I stood up. I nodded. I left. No shouting. No tears. Just the sound of the door closing behind me. The weeks after were strange. Not loud pain. Quiet disbelief. I kept expecting a message. A soft apology. A check-in. Nothing came. Instead, I started hearing things. Through cousins. Through old friends. Stories. That I was struggling. That I had burned out. That I was asking for money. None of it was true. But none of it surprised me either. They needed me to be failing. It made their decision feel justified. Then something happened that changed everything. I received an alert from my bank. A withdrawal from an account I rarely used. An account tied to my parents from years ago. I called immediately. The transaction was authorized in person. By my mother. She had claimed there was an emergency. I drove nowhere for a long time after that call. Just circles. When I finally stopped, I sat there and laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. They had taken from me without asking, and they felt entitled to it. Later that night, I found out why. My brother had invested in something risky. Failed. They covered his losses. With my money. I did not confront them right away. I needed to understand what I felt first. It was not rage. It was clarity. Clean, sharp understanding. They did not see me as a person. I was a resource or a disappointment. Nothing in between. I closed every shared door after that. Accounts, legal ties, access points I should have closed years earlier. Quietly, professionally. Then I stepped back. I let them live in the story they had written. I let them believe I was gone. Months passed. I focused on my work. I expanded things I had been delaying. I traveled. I met people who had no interest in my family name, only in my ideas. My world got bigger. Their world stayed the same. And that distance changed me. I became calmer, more precise. I stopped craving fairness. I started valuing boundaries. The turning point came unexpectedly. A business event in another city. Panel discussion. I spoke about building something without validation, without support. I did not mention my family. I did not need to. The talk gained attention. It spread. An article followed. Then another. My name began appearing in places my family read. I did not send it to them. I did not have to. Someone else did. The call came 3 days later. My father. His voice was different, careful. He said he had seen something. He asked if it was true. I said yes. There was a long pause. Then he said, "We didn't know." I told him that was the problem. He asked if we could meet. I said no, not yet. A week later, my mother emailed. She said families make mistakes. She said they did what they thought was best. She said they were proud. That word felt heavy, not comforting, heavy. I did not reply. The final moment came not with drama, but with paperwork. A legal notice. They had tried to access something else tied to my name, and failed. That failure forced a conversation they could no longer avoid. We met in a quiet office. Neutral ground. They looked smaller there. Not weaker, just human. My brother avoided eye contact. My mother cried. My father spoke about misunderstandings. I listened. Then I spoke. I told them the truth. Not about money, about trust. About how many times I had shown up quietly. How often I had swallowed comments. How being underestimated hurts less than being erased. I told them the money they took was never the real loss. The real loss was that they never asked. They never believed. They never saw me. Silence filled the room. Not dramatic silence. Honest silence. The kind that does not argue back. When I left that meeting, I did not feel victorious. I felt done. That surprised me. I had imagined anger, relief, some grand emotion. Instead, I felt light, like I had put something down that I was never meant to carry. We do not speak now, not because of hatred, because distance is the only thing that finally made things clear. I do not need revenge. I do not need approval. I needed space to become myself without explaining it. And I took it. Sometimes I still think about that night in my car, watching the house, feeling unwanted. If I could speak to that version of myself, I would say this. Being dismissed does not mean you are wrong. Being unseen does not mean you are small. And walking away is not failure. Sometimes it is the first honest choice you ever make.